Welcome to the Cinefied podcast, the show where we enlighten you on what film to watch next by discussing the latest projects brought either to the silver screen or the comfort of your home. I'm your moderator this week, Kevin Lau, and I am joined by critics Connor Petrie, Cassandra Hager, and John Odette. Today, we are talking about Eddington, Ari Aster's latest film. You may know Ari Aster from films such as Hereditary, Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid. The summary of Eddington is this. In May of 2020, a standoff between a small town sheriff and mayor sparks a powder keg as neighbor is pitted against neighbor in Eddington, New Mexico. Tiffany McLaughlin, who wrote the review of Eddington for our website, has this to say about Eddington. It is a pretty steep departure from Ari Aster's earlier work, both in tone and setting. His earlier films earned him a reputation as a director of nightmarish horror films, but Eddington is much more grounded and, quite frankly, hilarious. Watching Eddington is like looking into a snow globe that gets darker and darker until the glass becomes a mirror, inviting the viewer to take notice of the real consequences that happen when we get too hung up on introspective drama. Tiffany gave Eddington a full popcorn review, meaning that it is a must-see. But before we get into our spoiler-free thoughts, Cassie, as a casual Pedro Pascal supporter, what did you think of Pedro Pascal as Mayor Ted Garcia?
I'm so sorry. Right before I looked up, I was looking at Pedro Pascal memes, and it was
and then on brand. Just a casual Pedro Pascal supporter
to introduce me. Yeah, he's all right. So I was thinking about this as I was watching the movie, and I was like, everyone's just gonna assume that I'm biased, but no, I thought his performance was so good. Like, honestly, one of the better things I've seen him in. His best
until Fantastic Four next week.
The Last of Us. Exactly.
That's fair.
No, but like he's so well suited for that role. Sometimes when I watch movies, I'll kind of like fan cast like alternative actors, you know what I mean? And I was watching this one and I was like, oh, I could see what's his name? I'm forgetting his name, but you know what I mean. Picturing other actors in my head. Anyway, I couldn't think of anyone who would be better than Pedro in this role. And also he was dressed a little bit like Joel from The Last of Us, which is cool too.
A little bit, just a little bit. But now we're going to do a roundtable of spoiler-free reviews. Connor, you want to kick us off? What is your spoiler-free review of Eddington?
I'm a pretty decent fan of Ari Aster. I think Ari Aster is a very unique director. I think that it's cool that each one of his 4 films goes in a very different direction. While I know a lot of people have Hereditary at the top of their list when it comes to his 4 films, I personally have Midsummer on the top. I love that film. I can watch that. While the other 3 in his filmography, including this one, I don't see myself really rewatching. I get their merit. I think that they're well filmed. I just... there's a lot going on here, a lot of ideas flowing, and I think there might be just a little too much ideas that his bulb might have just like burst on top of his head, because it's a little, the light bulb just I think did too much here, because I just think 2020 is so recent. I don't think it's really something that I want to look back at this time. That's my first thoughts.
That is entirely fair. John, how about you?
Well, okay. So listen, I also appreciate Ari Aster's work, and I did like Eddington. I think also Hereditary is my favorite of his body of work. Midsummer, I do like. I'll never watch it again. Same with Beau is Afraid. But like Beau is Afraid, Eddington is very, very ambitious, and it's very different from his typical horror fare. This film, Eddington, is easily his most grounded film that he's made thus far. And it is very ambitious, and it throws a lot at you. There's a lot on the canvas. But I think not everything, he couldn't quite deliver on everything. It wasn't what I expected. And to Connor's point, 2025 is only 5 years removed from when this film is set in May of 2020. And regardless of who you are, what your political affiliation, your background, all your demographic information, everyone probably went through something really hard through that time frame. And so revisiting that time frame so soon is is almost like an endurance test for many people. So there's not a lot of joy in Eddington, but also there's not a lot of joy in Ari Aster's films in the first place. So it's tread softly. I did like the film, but the caveat is I don't know who I could recommend it to. Be a very niche group of film goers.
That's a very fair point because this is my first Ari Aster film, and I was blown away by it. I thought it was amazing. But again, if I were to give it a popcorn rating, I would give it a full popcorn, a must see. But I have no idea who I'd recommend this to. So is it truly a must see? We'll have to keep talking about it to find out. But Cassie, how about you? What's your spoiler free review of Eddington?
Yeah, so you were saying like you don't know who you would recommend it to, and I agree that this is one of those movies where I say I loved it, and no, I don't think you should watch it. Or, I think it was John, what you were saying. You love his movies, but you never want to watch them again. I think I'm kind of right there with you. I appreciate them so much, and I think they're so ambitious, and he's only like 4 movies in, my gosh. And like, look what he has done and accomplished. That said, I thought Eddington started a lot stronger than it ended, which Aster has a habit of doing in his films, in my opinion. I thought it was his realist work to date. I felt very immersed, invested, conflicted. I felt, yeah, it's a tough one, but it really affected me. And so it's not perfect. I think the final 20 minutes could have maybe been chopped off, rewritten, because those last 20 minutes are when he tends to go off the deep end. But overall, I'd say like 4 out of 5 stars. My favorite film of his. That's crazy, but yeah, my favorite of his, I'd say.
Oh, wow. All right.
Mhm.
Well, on that note, we're going to dive into spoilers because it is very difficult to talk about this movie without talking about spoilers. There's a lot going on, a lot of subtext happening. But first off, I want to ask the question, did anyone find this film that is supposedly a comedy that does have the comedy label in the advertising? Did anyone find it funny? Because even though I found there some jokes funny, like there are some definitive jokes in there, definitely intentional. I was more scared and anxiety driven the entire movie. But yeah, I wonder if anyone else had thoughts on that. John, you want to kick us off?
Oh, this movie was hilarious, but I'll explain myself. Because yes, there are a lot of sight gags and a lot of little funny lines that they deliver, and how I was kind of like equating it in my head. It felt like, and stay with me here, Ari Aster was cosplaying as the Coen brothers who were directing a live action South Park episode. And what I mean by that is, like, some of the funniest dialogue I've heard in an Ari Aster film was in Eddington. Some of the exchanges between, well, a lot of the Joaquin Phoenix dialogue, but a lot of his two-hander stuff with him and Pedro Pascal's character Ted Garcia. And the thing is that they're both, they're playing it straight. They're like, no, this is, and yes, it does echo what life was like in 2020, but at the same time, it's almost too on the nose. And I think that's also to the film's detriment because Ari Aster was kind of trying to paint this big mess of a portrait of like everyone on the spectrum of policy, politics, ideologies, regulations, or enforcing the regulations. Everyone had their side or their position there, and he kind of double taps on all of them. And so there are moments where I was actually laughing out loud in the theater, and like probably when I shouldn't have, but also like I thought, when else do I do this? Well, when I watch inappropriate humor like South Park or Family Guy or something, where you know what they're doing, like they're making fun of they're satirizing something, and that's what I felt this kind of was a send up of the snapshot of who we were as a country just 5 years ago. And will that humor land with everybody? Did everyone pick up or appreciate that humor? Maybe, maybe not. I think part of that barometer for people is going to be measured by how much they're affected and have are still recovering from 2020.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. I mean, I think I agree too with like the different people are going to find this different levels of comedic. And I think also this kind of works as a bit of a litmus test as well of where someone lands politically on the spectrum for in terms of how COVID went down, because it's the film doesn't necessarily like in your face pick a side. It definitely picks a side, but it's not in your face. It definitely is more of a snapshot perspective. So it becomes more of a Rorschach test for a lot of people, I think. But Cassie, based on what John said and kind of the question of if you found it funny, if you found it more scary, like is it still an Ari Aster movie, even though it's kind of almost South Parkish?
I don't think it's South Parkish. I think that's a little insulting, John. It's okay.
No, South Park's kind of good.
You know. So
I said what I said. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Own it. I think you said it was too on the nose. I would argue it was supposed to be on the nose. Like I feel like the world, Ari Aster's world building is like us looking into a funhouse mirror. So I feel like it's supposed to be really warped, but still like based in some sort of reality. So that's my take on that.
How about you, Connor? Any input on that?
I didn't particularly find it funny. My audience, I had about 20 people in the theater. It was I sat close to the front, so so everybody was behind me, and it was just like dead silence. So I don't think anybody was laughing. I kind of chuckled at a few things. I think it was more like nervous laughter at some points that I was doing because now that we're in spoilers, correct?
Yep, correct. Spoilers are allowed here.
Okay, great. Like when the sudden Pedro getting shot in the chest happened, I was like, oh shit, and had a little like chuckle there. And like when the explosion happened at the end, that like came out of nowhere. Like it's just like the ultra violent moments gave me a little chuckle. But I think that there's like moments like when Joaquin goes and turns off the Katy Perry music and then it turns back on, goes back. I think that part I thought was funny. And then the slap I thought was funny. Which I did think at that moment, as I had heard that Pedro had died in this film, I did think that that's when Pedro was going to die, was when he got slapped. I think especially with the music like booming, I thought it was going to go with the Katy Perry song where it was like the firework thing and he like shoots him. I thought it was going to coordinate.
Just like the interview.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly with the tank scene. So, but I mean, I feel like my issue with this film is that, and Cassie, you said this, that he's good at beginnings and then he kind of goes off at the end. And I think that that's my big issue with this is that I think it's such a strong beginning. And I was so invested in the beginning and then it just teeters off at the halfway point, and then it just like goes off the rails into I don't know why he decided to end it the way he did. Really, I mean, maybe you all have an idea why he ended it like that, but it's puzzling to me because I think it is in fact 20 minutes, 30 minutes too long. I think it just keeps going.
Can I say something?
I might be on the wrong show.
I'm like, do I raise my hand like this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Connor, I think it's interesting that you laughed at the slap because my reaction to it was so different. I actually thought it was one of like the sadder moments because I remember thinking, wow, that's justified because of like what he did. So I think it's really, that's interesting that we read that two very different ways.
Yeah, like I said, I think this movie kind of works as a weird Rorschach test. Like and a better version of Alex Garland's Civil War, I think is a good comparison.
Because I recently watched Civil War for the first time, by the way, and I loved it. I can't believe I waited that long.
I watched it for the first time a couple months ago. I didn't really care for it, but that's a topic
Yeah.
for another time.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny, Connor, talking about the theater experience, because I watched it in a theater, roughly about 10 people. I was also sitting near the front. I only laughed a couple times. There was only one other guy that laughed. He laughed more than me. But weird story though, like, so in this front row, the other guy that laughed besides me, I'm in the center. He starts off the movie at the end here. But like every now and then he'll get up and use the bathroom, and when he comes back, he gets like one seat closer to me. And so it gets like, it's a little weird, and then like he's laughing at weird parts, and he also brought a backpack in. So I'm like, what is about to happen right now?
You never know.
It gets to the point where he's like only one seat away from me, so there's only one seat separating us. I'm like, please don't come any closer, and he didn't. So there's a happy ending there. But also, I think I might be on the wrong show, because I think the ending is the strongest part of this movie.
Really?
I thought, yeah, I was. It took a while for me to really like lock into the movie, but once I was locked in, it got better as it went on.
I have something to say about the ending. And so, for some context, I went with a buddy last night to go see this movie, and we were walking out, and we were having a conversation. We parked our cars next to each other, and we're kind of just going over our thoughts and ruminating a little bit in the moment. And his big takeaway was like, he loved the first 2/3 of Eddington. He's like, oh yeah, this is great. This was great. And then that big pivot, like when the bomb goes off in the field. And then from that point to the end, he was like, what? And I think it's kind of like, for my take on the ending, because I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it. I was still kind of digesting it and processing it right after the screening. And now that I have some time to think about it, I think like the ending like turns into something of a mini action film almost, is kind of like this cathartic send-off of all this tension that's been bubbling the whole movie. I do think the first 2/3 are better than the last third. As much as I love action movies and all that kind of stuff, it was weird kind of fitting that in to the narrative of the film. But looking at the some of the parts, I think it makes sense. And to the very end of the film, where Joaquin Phoenix is paralyzed, and they signed to the deal to build that big data center that was like what Pedro Pascal's character was kind of running on. It's like Joaquin Phoenix's character kind of won, because he's now the hero that brought all this stuff in, and he was kind of, anti all that other stuff earlier. So, but it's like, what did you have to sacrifice to get to where you're at? But I think that taps more into the character Joaquin Phoenix plays, Joe Cross, who's like this, who plays himself with a lot of bravado, machismo, just to mask all this insecurity that he has. And which is like, we're like walking to the story with Joaquin Phoenix. It's not like a two-hander with him, Pedro Pascal, the whole film, unfortunately, which I thought that this was going to be. But it ties back into Ari Aster's overall theme as a filmmaker, which is all very grim and nihilistic. And I think that's what may turn off a lot of people on Eddington, ending or no ending, as it is.
Emma Stone gets a happy ending in the movie, so
That's
Queen Emma.
debatable.
I have thoughts about that too, but
she's knocked up by a hottie, so she's fine.
I mean, Eddington is just one of those movies where every character is a victim of something, and they're a victim of something sometimes of their own doing, sometimes not. Sometimes the world is just deals them a bad set of cards. But kind of like building off of what you said, John, about how this movie kind of like takes a turn to become an action movie or a bloodbath really towards the end. For me, as I was watching the whole thing, especially when we got to that part, I got a lot of Taxi Driver vibes from that, because Taxi Driver is a similar situation. It's all very bubbling anxieties until you get to an explosive ending. So kind of build off on that, obviously Scorsese, as we know, is an Ari Aster fan, and that you can see a lot of Scorsese's use of visual language in Ari Aster's work, including Eddington. But with Taxi Driver, we're following a character that is morally wrong, which is Joaquin Phoenix's character. But he's a character that thinks he has what it takes to fix the town that's in trouble. Where there's even an assassination attempt for the mayor, which that also happens in Taxi Driver. But I'm wondering, does anyone have any thoughts on that comparison? Cassie, you want to start off?
I have to respectfully bow out, you guys, because I've never seen Taxi Driver.
That's fair. That's entirely fair. How about you, John or Connor?
I've seen Taxi Driver, and I do see the parallels with De Niro's Taxi Driver character. I forget his name. It's been a while.
Travis Bickle, I think.
Travis Bickle. That's right. And yeah, and I think like Joaquin Phoenix's character, like Joe Cross in Eddington, yes, he's morally wrong, but like I think Travis Bickle, where they separate is Travis Bickle morally wrong, but I think he had good intentions. Joe Cross is completely being selfish, and he's trying to overcome his insecurities by doing like the worst possible decisions, and he's motivated by like, or he's telling people, "Oh, I'm just doing it for the good of the town." But it's really about himself, and Joaquin Phoenix knocks it out of the park playing this. It's a very vulnerable role. But yeah, it's like the whole movie is like a wind-up doll, and then it pops, and then like the end of Taxi Driver. Well, at the end of Taxi Driver, I think he lives, or does he? But he is able to live his life, whereas Joaquin Phoenix is living his life ? With the mother-in-law and the nurse who sleeps in the same bed as all three of them together. That's very Ari Aster, that whole decision.
Yeah, I'm also in Cassie's boat. I've also not seen Taxi Driver.
Okay, Connor, I thought for sure you would have seen it by now.
Closest Taxi Driver I've seen is Joker.
We need to watch it this weekend. We should let's challenge ourselves to watch Taxi Driver this weekend.
Yeah, I've considered it.
It's on Tubi for free.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
With ads and compressed 720p.
Well, don't bring it down.
Look, I say that as someone who worked on a movie that's on Tubi right now, and every time I see it, I'm like, oh, it looks gross.
The scene that we're talking about at the end with the mother-in-law in the bed with Joaquin Phoenix, and then the nurse climbs in the bed. Now, Kevin, I know you haven't seen Beau is Afraid, but Cassie and John, you've seen Beau is Afraid?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep.
It reminded me kind of like the weird. I thought it was going to lead to a weird scene, kind of like where and sorry, Kevin, for the bit of spoiler for Beau is Afraid, where he's having sex with his like long forgotten like girl that he had a thing with on a cruise ship or whatever, and then the mom is just magically in the room like after she like dies. I was thinking like they were gonna start having sex and Joaquin Phoenix was gonna like die in the bed or something. I thought it was gonna be like such a weird like scene. It's just Ari Aster for me that he can just make those weird leaps for no reason. So the whole 20 minutes for me just felt very like unnecessary for a lot of reasons. But I get what you're saying, John, about like about the reasoning behind it. It didn't work for me, at least on first viewing. But I don't know if it's a viewing that I'll have again. So we'll see.
I think this might be the first Aster movie that I want to watch again.
I was just going to say what Cassie said. Like I needed time after every Ari Aster movie before I can look at it again, because it just takes so much out of me. There's a lot at you in each film he makes. I think Hereditary is the most rewatchable at this point because I've seen it the most. I like it the best. But Eddington, I think there is a rewatch reward potential there, because there's a lot of other nuances and things that I couldn't see in one viewing that I know that they're out there. So I'm curious when I get that momentum again to motivate myself to sit through this movie again, all 2.5 hours of it. I'm sure I'll appreciate and pick up new little nuggets that I didn't catch on first viewing.
Yeah, building off of that, I mean, when I was watching the film, I felt like Ari Aster was a filmmaker that really understands subtext in this movie. Every shot is very intentional. Every choice to cut to a new shot is very intentional. We are looking at certain things for certain times for certain reasons. There's also a lot of production design happening as well. So one of the most interesting pieces of subtext I noticed in the production design was a sticker on Joe Cross's car saying, "You're being manipulated. You're being misspelled as possessive instead of
Correct.
you are." So I felt like that's kind of an interesting thing. It's kind of like almost like Ari Aster saying that people who are saying you're being manipulated are themselves being manipulated. But I'm
So
wondering if there's any pieces of subtext like that or something else that others have found.
I'm going to go back to the comedy bit for a second. And this is what I mean when I say it was like South Park in terms of like, not South Park like it's the show South Park, but like as far as its satirizing nature, meaning it's those little sight gags, like you're being manipulated. Like it's done on purpose. Obviously, it's intentional, but it's like that's like a jab at like the boomer generation. Same thing with the mother-in-law who's like, sit down and read this QAnon post out loud at the kitchen table. Like that's a gag and it's poking fun at that's some of the humor. So I think, but going back to your point, Kevin, the subtext is, I think it's just, it's there. But I'll have to revisit it to really sink my teeth into it more, because I was just kind of just getting waterboarded on the first pass. But like a lot of it, like it was just kind of on the surface, like because in the satirical nature, it was like, yes, we're doing this stuff on purpose. Can you see how ridiculous all of this is? And obviously, audiences will temper where they sit with all that stuff, if it's funny or if it's interesting or it's not.
There was one moment in the film I was like thinking that it was going to go a completely different direction, and that's when Joaquin Phoenix kills the homeless man that wandered into town, and then he like bags him up, and I was like, is he going to go like a Dexter route now and just like start like chopping up like people he thinks are like in the wrong? And then it didn't go that way. But I was hopeful there for a second. But another thing that I have kind of an issue with this film is, if you can see the poster that's up behind us, it's very clear that Joaquin's the lead, then Pedro, and then Emma Stone's slightly smaller, and then you got Austin Butler and a bunch of other minor characters. Austin Butler, I think, is a little too big on that poster because he's like barely in the film.
He makes a big impact, though. You know, he owns his screen time.
His screen time is expensive, so you know it matches his paycheck.
Yeah, you gotta pay Elvis well. But yeah, I mean, I really liked his performance, but I just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like they kind of gave him a monologue to run with. Kind of felt like, even though it wasn't necessarily like a monologue, but it just kind of felt like he had one like key scene to like build his character. But I still don't really understand like why exactly. Besides Cassie, besides him being a handsome person, I don't really understand why Emma Stone left Joaquin for him. Although I get why she left Joaquin, but I don't get why.
They were buying into the same conspiracy, so they
it's
were
a cult
to each other's. Yeah, or was it? You know, we don't know.
I think Austin Butler's character, like when I first walked out of that theater, one of my biggest critiques, it was the runtime, and it's like, well, this runtime could be cut out or could be truncated if you just cut out Austin Butler's whole presence, like he was worthless. And then I chewed on it some more, and then my interpretation of Austin Butler being there, what he represents. Think about in 2020 when people felt lost and displaced amongst all this turmoil, that created a vacuum. And these cult leaders, these grifters, these smooth talkers that are handsome and they can speak really well can come right in. And then you take someone like Emma Stone's character, Louise, who's vulnerable. She's sad. Her husband's a mess. And here comes this handsome Austin Butler talking like, oh, I've got this trauma. We can bond over this trauma that you also may or may not have. And so I can see the attraction there and why she left. And that just further motivated Joaquin Phoenix to do what he did later in the film. That was my takeaway after I sat with it for a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I agree with John on that one. Like, I think Austin Butler's role I mean, again, it's adding more into what was going on with COVID. There was a lot of people that were looking for answers for something that were simple, like simple answers for complicated things, essentially. And that kind of creates different divides and ideologies. Some people think, like as shown in the film, the Black Lives Matter movement was the solution to everything, and the people who are shown, mostly the white liberals, who misunderstood what Black Lives Matter meant. They did, like, basically they thought protesting in the street was the way to get things changed instead of going through other resources as well. But also they had no idea that it's about thinking globally and acting locally, because they even thought, hey, why are we doing this in Eddington? Eddington is a nothing town. We got to go someplace that's bigger. So that's already showing that the misunderstanding what the purpose of their movement was. And the same thing on the other side of the political spectrum, the anti-maskers and everything else that was, and like being anti-BLM and stuff like that. There was also people that were like being scared about all the Antifa stuff. It's like, oh, what's going on here? We're being targeted. Da, da, da. Also trying to find a simple answer for a complicated problem. So, and again, there's a lot of subtext here going on with Ari Aster, a lot of layers going on, and there's so many. Sometimes it does feel like you're getting waterboarded with so much being thrown in your face. But then again, that's kind of a replication of how 2020 felt. There was just so much going on. Every day you looked at the news, something was different. But yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I personally felt more anxious watching the film than finding it funny, especially as someone who lives in a town that's not much bigger than Eddington. I see the Joe Cross character. I'm like, I know exactly who this person is, and like that grocery store scene is so scary to me, because like, yeah, you got this guy that just doesn't want to cooperate, and he's also one of the bigger bosses of the town, and he's got a gun. So like, what do you do? But yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I also was just gonna, like, back to your point, Kevin, talking about, like, the protesters and stuff, like the one girl who was almost 18, or was she 18, dating or not dating,
To be
ostensibly dating
determined.
the cop, but like how she was influencing Pedro Pascal's son, and then the white boy, like the friend, and then it kind of takes a shot in the eye at like the whole platforming and performative nature of some of those protesters, and some of those, like, those neoliberals who were like very, against the antithesis of the very neo-Republican and conservatives who are super anti-mask. These people are like in your face saying how bad you were, and so it was just this weird like social like experiment that's kind of getting thrown back at us. Because I remember that time. I remember like the time when everyone was putting the black square on their Instagram, and it was like
memories.
and it was like we were,
Yikes.
because sometimes like that's also to me a bit of the humor about it. It's like he's totally poking fun at who we were just 5 years ago, and it can sting. It can be kind of uncomfy, but also it made me look back like, what the hell were we doing in 2020? We were all in shambles because we were all kind of adrift, like as a collective. So
one of the things I enjoyed, one of the details was just the different people when you viewed their perspective or their phone, and they were like scrolling for social media, and you saw kind of like the different algorithms that were given. And I liked, like, for instance, it was like it was just like heavy like politics, and it's like this is why I'm not gay. It was just like, I was just like, okay, it's like that's clearly this character. I really like that I mean, it's very realistic. I mean, the algorithms to like obviously do that to this day, especially in 2020 when you're looking at just literally anything COVID, and then you got the election that just happened. So it's just like all kinds of like different things. Just algorithm just a mess with social media at that time. So I totally get that. I like that detail.
So if I may, what I wrote last night was that at its core, Eddington is a movie about performative activism and the lengths people will go to be a part of a cause, no matter what the cause is. And I think the main the main message of this movie is hidden in that the white friend, and the fact that we like can't even remember his name is interesting, right? But he joins, you know, the BLM movement not because he feels any particular way about it, but because he wants to get closer to this girl, right? So he's just desperate to be a part of any cause, and he doesn't really care what it is. And then eventually it consumes him. And then he, you know, turns around and quote unquote saves the sheriff's life, right? And he flip-flops and becomes a right-wing commentator, you know,
Literally
because he
becomes
used a
like
gun.
it becomes a mockery of Kyle Rittenhouse, essentially.
That's what I was
Yes,
thinking too.
yeah. So, and it doesn't matter, you know, because he just wanted the clout. He just wanted the attention, right? And I think in Tiffany's review, I really liked how she said, like, it's like looking through a snow globe, and then the snow globe becomes a mirror and you're seeing yourself. Because I really think it's like an exaggerated image of what we actually went through. And in a scary way, we're all the white friend, you know what I mean? Like, you know, if push comes to shove, like, yeah, it was an interesting commentary on a lot of things on that time period.
It definitely seemed like it was the story about this town of Eddington was like, yeah, it was kind of going back to the snow globe kind of metaphor, if you will. Like, this is a town that's kind of, instead of trying to reel itself in and walk backwards from the edge, that you know, we're still trying to do today. This one is like, no, we're gonna just jump right in. What if we just tip the whole thing down into the chasm and let things fall where they may? And I think it's almost like it's trying to be like a cautionary tale of what could have been, like a, you know, choose your own adventure. And it's scary because, like, it's skewering boomers, it's skewering millennials, Gen Zs, all in one shot. And it's like, no one's right, everyone's right. You know, it doesn't really take a side. And I think that's also, like, going back to Civil War for a second, that movie, which I did like. I did write the review for Cinefied. You should go read it. It's very good. Anyway, just drop that right there. Anyway,
It's good promotion.
It is. But like, as Civil War wasn't about the war itself. It wasn't interested in telling you who to fight for or who to root for, and neither is this film. And it kind of makes you just look at the whole thing and say, where do you sit? And that is very hard to do. So that's why I think this Eddington movie is very good, well made, but very hard to sit through, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for many people. And some people are not going to like what they see here.
And that takes it right back to, who do we recommend it to? No one. Other critics, and that's it, right?
Me.
There's just people that
recommend it to me.
There's people that sit behind a computer, use $5 words to talk about how great movies are.
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I made note of too, when I was watching, the last thing that white guy said was I saved you, right? I saved you. And what did he actually do? He condemned him to like a lifetime of just torture and misery, right? And did he know, and did he care? Probably not. But he got what he wanted, you know, on camera, saying I saved you. And then, I mean, he condemned him to a fate worse than death, honestly. That's just something I made note of too.
Yeah. You know, it's like a great man once said, "We did it, Patrick. We saved Bikini Bottom."
What is that? Oh, is that SpongeBob?
That is SpongeBob, yeah.
Good callback, Kevin. Good callback. My 15-year-old daughter will really appreciate that one for sure.
You have a 15-year-old, John?
She'll be 16 on Halloween.
That's crazy.
I know. Listen, I'll be 40 this year. Ari Aster is younger than I am.
Yeah, I'll be 40 too. But I don't have a
right.
16-year-old.
Reasonable.
Cool. But yeah, no, kind of building off of that and then kind of looping back about talking about the ending. So the ending has a lot of us divided. I really like it, but most of us seem to sound like we don't really like it that much, and a lot of people tend to just not like the last 20 minutes in general. But I think it's because the last 20 minutes are intentionally vague. It's left to your own interpretation. There is an obvious intention behind it. There is, well, not obvious, but there is an intention behind it. There is something that is motivating Ari Aster to make these creative decisions to tell his story, but it is thematically vague. And I think, again, ends kind of more of a Rorschach test than anything else. But my question is, what do you guys think the ending is about? When you see Joaquin Phoenix paralyzed and the town is just developing around him in a fate worse than death, as Cassie pointed out, is it proof that one man can make a difference with Joe Cross's actions, or is a unified community dictating the change instead of one man as the town develops around Joe Cross? Or is it about something else?
I think it's a little, my thoughts on what the ending were going to be very quickly. I thought that when he was starting to cough and get sick and he never saw the results from his COVID test, I thought, oh, he's going to pop positive and he's going to croak on some COVID and he's going to get his comeuppance that way. Oh, the irony. But I think also that would have been too obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And so him being paralyzed and having to sit out the rest of his days, in quotes, he won, but what did he win? And it's like, what did you sacrifice? What could have been, because at the end of the day, what Mayor Garcia wanted for the town is what happened. And there was like a communal whole thing where like the Pueblo land was combining with Eddington land to make this collaboration of industry happen. And that's all great. And of course, Joe Cross looks like the hero because he helped, bring it all to a head. But he never gets to enjoy the fruits of his labor, so to speak. And so it's just like he gets eternal punishment, not for having any sort of political leanings, but for being selfish and shitty to people and committing many, many crimes.
So many crimes. How about you, Connor?
Yeah, no, I agree with John. I'm still kind of digesting the ending. Because I'm more learning from you guys how to feel about it. Because
we
I
doing our
manipulated you
job.
enough. Good.
One of us.
But I mean, I think that to me it felt like kind of like even at like the ceremony of the opening of the data center, you kind of had still that one guy that was like in a suit that was part of like the that was hanging out in the Pedro Pascal's bar that was like part of the town committee. Like he's still there, and I think at some point I can't remember, but I feel like some point he's just kind of like, we're gonna get our way no matter what kind of like deal. And I think him being still a part of the committee and Joaquin kind of not really having a say anymore, like everything's just kind of building around him, and he's like a symbol of hope, but he's not really getting a say on any of the matters within the town of Eddington anymore. But I don't know really much else to say about it as far as like meaning behind it. But I think that John's point was a really good and valid one that definitely makes me think.
That's what we do here at Cinefied. We make people think. How about you, Cassie? What are your thoughts on the ending?
He's one of those directors where his movies always seem like they're going to end about 14 times before they actually do. Like, I remember thinking that when I was watching Beau Was Afraid as well. The ending was my least favorite part. I'm kind of still pondering it, honestly.
Yeah,
I
completely.
don't know.
Right.
I feel like I need to, I need to chew on it for like.
Just need a moment.
Hours.
As soon as we end the episode, you'll be like, "Wait, I have an idea." How about you, John?
Well, it kind of just hit me, but like, I think a big theme of this film was control, and what I mean by that is control. 2020 felt very out of control, and Joaquin Phoenix's whole like goal was to be in control. He can't control. He can't really control his town. He's a terrible sheriff. He's got doofuses for deputies. The town citizens don't respect him. His wife is a stranger in the same room as he is. So he tries to establish his own control by trying to run for mayor. And he does it in the most unethical, criminal fashion. And then the irony is that, oh, okay, you want to be mayor? Cool. You're going to be paralyzed and you're going to be out of control for the rest of your life. So I think that's an indictment on us wanting to have control in a very rocky atmosphere, which is just like Ari Aster, to be nihilistic and dark and grim and make us sad when we leave. So that's also just a thing I was just kind of considering as well.
Yeah, I mean, expanding on it a little bit more, though, is it about control or is it about manipulation? Because Joe Cross becomes a manipulator. He has the sticker on his car that says, "You're being manipulated." It's almost kind of an in-your-face reference to that. Emma Stone's character joins a cult, a form of manipulation. Pedro Pascal's character is a very two-faced politician, another form of manipulation in the way how he controls a town. So I'm just wondering, do you think manipulation is a more apt description of its theme?
Well, I think manipulation is control, and it's just driving the boat no matter what. But like the manipulation, control in the context of manipulation is you're gaslighting people, you're hurting people, you're framing your coworker for murder. You're trying to control the narrative through manipulation, and and it's an extreme overcorrection to the out of control feeling. I think we all felt, no matter who we are, what color we are, what political spectrum side we're leaning toward. My assumption is that when we feel so out of control, we will do. And by we, I mean Joaquin Phoenix in this movie. We will go to any lengths we can to grab back onto some control, so we feel kind of steady.
Cool. Fantastically well said. All right. So to end our episode, we're going to go do a roundtable of final thoughts. And what popcorn rating would you give Eddington? Because I know we're talking about, like, it's hard to recommend this movie to someone. So do you call it a mistake? Do you call it a maybe? Do you call it a must? For me, I thought it did what it aimed to do really well. So by that note, by giving it 5 stars from me personally, I give it a full. I say it's a must. I don't know if it's a must see for everyone. How about you, Cassie?
It's a must for me. It's a maybe for everyone else. I think is where I'm landing with it. Yeah, I think I went with full 4 out of 5.
What about Pedro Pascal's fans?
5 out of 5 out of 5 out of infinity.
Until that one scene.
Exactly.
How about you, John?
Yeah, this gets a full for me, but with that caveat that, if you're looking into going into an Ari Aster film, because he's becoming an auteur at this point, like he is his own brand, right? Like if you aren't familiar with Ari Aster's brand and how he makes films and tells stories, don't expect a picnic. Otherwise you'll be disappointed. But if you're curious, I'd say give it a shot.
All right. How about you, Connor?
I'd give it a half or a maybe. I think that it's very well filmed. I think there's a lot that when people go into this, they'll either really enjoy or dislike about it. I think that it's a film that I think Ari Aster had a plan in place, and I think he put that plan directly on the screen. I just don't think it's exactly what I want from Ari Aster. I think that it's cool that he's going in a bunch of different directions with each of his films, but I do kind of want him to circle back and just make another fun, well, not necessarily fun, but shocking, like, horror film again. Because Beau is Afraid and this one, they're more anxiety horror. And I think Hereditary and Midsommar has anxiety as well, but I think Hereditary and Midsommar lean more into horror as horror. And I think that these last 2 films have gone in a completely different direction. I do hope he circles back. But who knows? Maybe he'll do just a straight up like slapstick comedy next.
I'm learning today that I've been saying Midsummer wrong this entire time.
I was about to say the same thing. Like,
to be fair, I say Midsummer
beginning
too.
Of the episode. Midsummer.
I'd say
okay,
Midsummer.
I haven't seen the movie.
So, real quick, Kevin, just if you're going to go backwards through the Ari Aster catalog, and if Austin Butler in his cult, I'm using that term loosely here, you'll see that cults are a common trend in Ari Aster films. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything.
I know it's a certain plot element for the Florence Pugh one, but did not know about Hereditary and Beau is Afraid. Is it the same cult? Is it a cinematic universe?
No.
Oh, well, all right.
Sorry.
Now I'm less interested. I only watch cinematic universes.
Connor, I'm curious what he does next. This indie horror almost to mainstream pipeline that he's trying to put himself on. I don't think he's going to get there if A24 doesn't ever rein him in, because they have yet to do so, and which is very surprising considering Beau's Afraid didn't do well.
No,
domestically.
No, flopped.
It flopped hard.
I mean, A24 also isn't like a reining in kind of studio too.
No.
Well, I think their brand's suffering because of it, because they've been putting out some duds, in my opinion, lately.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
Death of a Unicorn and Opus
so
were awful.
Oh, I saw Opus 2 days ago. That was a big waste of time.
That was bad.
I watched it 2 days ago. Yeah,
you guys were at the same screening without me.
Yeah,
they like just put it on HBO, is why so everyone's just
Yeah.
because none of us
That's
wanted
why-
to.
yeah,
bother
Opus-
seeing
that's right.
it.
Opus
Yeah.
was no bueno. No bueno.
such a waste.
I know,
Yeah,
because John
A24
Malkovich was born to play a cult leader, like truly.
He was great.
Yeah,
He was good.
No, he was.
it was
good.
a waste of John Malkovich.
100%.
I am curious, like with this in mind, like because obviously A24 releases. I feel like besides like Lionsgate and like Vertical Entertainment, I think they release definitely the most films in theaters out of all the studios per year. I feel like because it feels like there's an A24 film at least like twice, 3 times a month.
Yeah.
Just about. I mean, like especially this year, they're really rolling stuff out. But A24 is again, it's a distributor first, studio second. So a lot of the movies, they're just buying it from seeing it at film festivals. Only a small handful of them are actually made by A24 themselves.
Correct.
Yeah, but I don't know if like the one, whether it be bought by them or made through them. I don't know out of all the ones I've seen this year if I really enjoyed any of them. I think
Bring Her Back.
Warfare. Okay, Bring Her Back I really liked. Warfare I
Bring Her
really
Back.
liked.
Yep, I like both of them.
And that's all I can think of. I was so massively disappointed with Death of a Unicorn. I'm so glad
Same.
I missed that at South by Southwest, because that would have
What
been
about
Yeah.
Warfare? That one's pretty divisive.
No, Warfare I loved.
I like Warfare.
I hated Warfare.
So,
Well-
for some context, like I was in Iraq in 2005, and that felt very, very real to me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I loved it.
I'm not
It
here
was
to yuck
frightening.
anyone's yum. So if you
No,
like
no, no.
it, I mean, it's more power to
Is
you.
Warfare
No.
streaming anywhere? I feel like I never even saw it. It was just like a blip.
I think
Uh,
I think it just
it's on
started streaming
Max.
somewhere.
Yeah, it's out now.
However, underseen A24 movie this year, Legend of Ochi, fantastic.
I have not seen
I
that.
forgot
Is it-
about
Is it
that.
good? I haven't
So good. I absolutely love it. The dialogue is the worst part, unfortunately.
Huh.
seen it. So,
I-
Cassie,
I mean, okay, that's not a deal breaker.
I'm just a big fan of visual storytelling, and it does it
Okay.
so well. And then
That's
people talk, and I'm like, this sucks.
Fair.
John, what were you gonna say?
I was looking at it was on the brain. So Warfare is streaming, not with a subscription, but with purchase. You can stream it on Prime Video or Apple or Fandango at home. So you
It'll
gotta
eventually come.
pay some dollars for it. But
Yeah,
out
or
there.
make very poor financial decisions like me and buy the A24 Blu-rays. It's not good financially. Not good from a bank account at all. It
Wow.
looks great on the shelf though.
I
Wait,
am.
they just automatically send them as soon as they have them available, or what?
No, I mean it's like it's on their website, and also Barnes and Noble carries them as well. But it's like their special, basically their own little Criterion collection versions.
Yeah, that's kind of
Oh.
cool.
Yeah,
I got sent.
That's fun.
I got sent the Warfare one, and it's my first A24 Blu-ray I have, and it's cool, but I do think they're kind of flimsy.
A little bit, but the video quality of those match the same video quality as Criterion's, according to the specs I was looking at. I only have I Saw the TV Glow and After Sun, but I do plan on getting Legend of Ochi soon as well.
Well, 2 for 2 so far. Really good.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for everyone for listening to this episode of the Cinefied podcast. You can find more of our episodes as well as all of our written reviews on cinefied.com, including our review of Eddington written by Tiffany McLaughlin. You can follow us on Letterboxd, as well as all major social media platforms to stay up to date with our reviews. Now pop some popcorn, grab a drink, and remember to stay cinefied.